Executives from some of Canada's biggest companies across various sectors have come out and endorsed Pierre, calling for a change in government. In a full-page ad taken out in Canada's largest newspapers, these executives have thrown their support behind the Conservatives, claiming that Poilievre is the only leader with a plan to get Canada back on track. Joining us now is one of the CEOs who signed the letter, Bryan Gould, CEO and founder of AspenLeaf Energy Limited. Bryan, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the executives on this list include CEOs from sectors across Canada's economy. How exactly did this ad campaign come about, and what made you feel the need to take out ads endorsing the Conservatives?
I guess there's lots of backroom conversations about the state of the Canadian economy, and this goes back even before the election. And I know that there's a growing sense of frustration that we've been on the wrong path, a lack of fiscal discipline, building up enormous debt, hamstringing industry with overregulation, and frankly, governments trying to centrally plan the economy rather than letting a free market economy work to be productive for all Canadians. So there's been gathering frustration on this for some time, and myself and other CEOs, we have conversations on this, and realize, first you think you're the only one thinking these things, and of course you start to have these conversations and you realize you're not the only one. And that was, I would say, the genesis of an agreement to write a letter coming out publicly to state our view.
Now, the first major call to action is support for free enterprising, arguing that the government needs to be a facilitator. Can you walk us through what exactly this means and where the current government under the Liberals has gone wrong?
So my view is we're at a crossroads in Canada, and fundamentally, I think myself and the people that I won't speak for others that signed the letter, but I'm sure we have a common view that the economy works from the bottom up. So it starts with each individual, and some of your listeners will be familiar with the famous Adam Smith and the invisible hand in the economy, and that, frankly, is what Pierre Poilievre and his party stand for. The Liberal Party and their track record is one based on top-down central planning and the government telling businesses what to do. And frankly, when I read Mark Carney's platform, it's not just telling businesses what to do, but it's increasingly the government doing business itself. And I think, history just shows that that's incredibly inefficient and leads to a poor use of the country's resources.
And your ad also mentions barriers. What specific barriers are you looking to have removed or eased?
There are a plethora of regulatory barriers, and I'm from the oil and gas industry, but this is relevant not just for our industry. Frankly, in our country now, you can't get anything built. Bill C-69, the Impact Assessment Act, which applies to all industries, not just to oil and gas. It's been ruled unconstitutional, and it's just impossible to get anything built, whether it's an energy project or a mine. And it scares away investors. This country has a huge productivity problem. We don't attract enough capital, and we invest in low productivity activities that diminish our economy. And regulatory tangles contribute very strongly to that. So we do need to streamline our regulatory processes.
And in terms of fiscal discipline, what exactly does that entail? Is there a target in terms of government spending?
I mean, for me, fiscal discipline starts with governments staying in their lane and doing the things that governments are intended to do and not getting the lane of business. So business is here to do business, and government's job is to create an environment where business can thrive, but not to do business itself. So it starts with that. And you look at the buildup of the bureaucracy. Most of our employment gains have come through hiring government workers, and it's incredibly bloated. And so fiscal discipline, in my mind, means running a lean government that does the things that government needs to do, the essentials, and lets business do business.
And today, in his platform announcement, Poilievre didn't mention anything about how he's going to handle the tariff situation or the Trump situation. Now, as a business CEO, and as you mentioned in the oil and gas industry, does that worry you at all?
Actually, perversely, I have much more confidence in Pierre Poilievre and his government dealing with the tariffs than I do Mark Carney. People frankly believe Mark Carney is this great businessman. Mark Carney has not run businesses. Mark Carney has been a bureaucrat. He's been in government. He's a policy guy. And frankly, when I look at Mark Carney's fundamental beliefs, it's about big government. And perversely, one of the things that Mark Carney champions is putting on border adjustment taxes to tax emissions from countries that don't have industrial carbon taxes. That, in my mind, is a tax, no different than a tariff. So not only do I not believe that Mark Carney is the best person to deal with the US administration, I think he will pile on and put taxes on Canadians in addition to the tariffs that we're already facing. So fundamentally, I believe that Pierre will pull together, frankly, an all-star team of negotiators. I know some of the names that would be contemplated that I think would volunteer gratefully to help the country. And I'm absolutely convinced that Pierre would have a much stronger negotiating team than would Mr. Carney.
Well, to stay on taxes, they're a major focal point. What should be reformed when it comes to the tax code?
Well, quite simply, we need a tax system that reduces taxes, that incents investment. This country has an enormous productivity problem. We do not attract the capital investments that are required to build our economy. And we have this incredible blessing of wealth in our natural resources, but that will require large capital investments for us to realize our potential. And having a competitive tax environment is a key component. Now, I know some people say, oh, that gives tax breaks to the rich. Nothing could be further from the truth. A reduced tax take from the government will incent investment, and that will get the economy going, create great jobs for everyone, create employment, and create prosperity that would be shared for all Canadians. So I'm a huge advocate of reducing taxes, not for my own personal well-being, but to incent investment, which the country so direly needs.
And on energy, both the Liberals and Conservatives have, in their own way, endorsed the idea of energy expansion. How do you see the two plans comparing to each other?
They're night and day different. So the Conservatives would facilitate growth in oil and gas production. Mr. Carney is championing an emissions cap, which will effectively be a cap on production. He talks about taxing what he calls large emitters, which will simply make energy, not only make energy more expensive for Canadians, and that means everything more expensive for Canadians, but he will stifle the investment that's required for us to reach our potential to export to the world. And in terms of climate, if for those that are interested, Canada's best contribution would be to grow our LNG business and export LNG to the world to displace coal. So Mr. Carney's approach will strangle energy, and he has dedicated, frankly, his life over the last number of decades, both through championing regulations, as we've discussed, but attempting to starve the industry of the capital that it needs for investment. And frankly, then he seeks to vilify the very use of oil and gas, which is incredibly destructive for Canada and its economy.
Well, Bryan, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you for having me.